Win Daily family, welcome to the Week 14 NFL live stream. I'm here with the one and only Two Lock Sports as our director of NFL, good friend, and of course, the legendary Sticks Picks is out celebrating his bachelor party for this weekend. Congrats, buddy. Another one bites the dust, but hey, we're all happy for you. Brian, how you doing today?
Good, my man. It's nice to be here. We got big shoes to fill without, Mr. Live Finals, not being around. We gotta bring our goods today because, we know Sticks probably isn't even awake right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing him,
I remember my bachelor party. I don't think I was up and moving this early.
He might not even be in the same city that he thought he was in last night. So
there's a movie about that.
We hope he's good, but hey, he might be filming a fourth sequel there to that movie series. But we'll get going here. First game on tap is Tennessee at Jacksonville. What are your thoughts on this one, Brad?
Well, I'll take the Jacksonville side because I feel like I gotta give you the Tennessee side. You're our resident Tennessee Mr. Titan over there. I mean, listen, this game, I'll make this simple on the Tennessee side. Derrick Henry is one of the best plays on the board. And I think the question becomes, what do you do on the other side? I'm not entirely sure that I love Jacksonville. I'm seeing a lot of Jacksonville love, but I think most of that is going to come from stacks, right? Because I think you're going to see people that have Henry on one side, or they might go with Tannehill, Brown, or your boy Corey Davis. And they're running it back with, some of that cheap Jacksonville exposure. The one guy that I will say that I have some interest in, if Eifert is out, Shaughnessy is 2.5K on DK. And I got a lot of interest there, not because, obviously I love stars and scrubs. But I also love, if you look at what Glennon's done the last 2 weeks, he's been super tight end dependent. The last 2 weeks, he's averaged 10 targets to his tight ends, once he took over. So I think, if he's the lone tight end, that could be an incredibly good spot for him. So he's a guy that I'm looking at just on the low end, but I'll let you chime in on Tennessee because, it's after Thanksgiving. You got to give your spiel.
Absolutely. So I do like the O'Shaughnessy call there. When everyone's trying to figure out this wide receiver carousel for the Jags between, you got DJ Chark, you have Colin Johnson, you have Keelan Cole, you have our Win Daily favorite, Visca Chenault still out there. Everyone's trying to bounce between four wide receivers, and then you just hit him with a Shaughnessy at tight end there. So you know what? It's a great leverage spot to be in. Min price on DK, he definitely won't hurt you, and he has that upside where everyone's probably duplicating their lineups and running one Colin Johnson, running one Keelan Cole, running one Visca, and then a lot of people are gonna overlook that tight end spot. So I definitely like that call as well. For me, thank you for leaving me the Titans side. I appreciate it. They are my number one stack on the board today. Death, taxes, Tennessee stacks after Thanksgiving. You guys have heard me say it week in, week out now, ever since our Thanksgiving weekend. They have the highest implied team total on the board, all jokes aside there. So, yes, it's something that we do follow pretty strongly as of last season, ever since Ryan Tannehill really picked it up. This is something that, he's in a great spot again here. They're facing a bottom 3 ranked DVOA pass defense that's there. And with the highest implied team total at 30.5, I'm surprised he's not pulling the amount of ownership that he is.
I agree.
So especially on DraftKings and FanDuel, both sites, he's in the middle pack of pricing. FanDuel at 7,900, I thought he would be the chalk quarterback, or at least one of the top 3, and he's not even close right now. So getting the quarterback with a team that has a 30.5 implied team total is definitely something that interests me. Corey Davis is in the middle of a breakout season right now. He's somebody that, I thought I had completely hopped off the bandwagon. This guy got drafted 5th overall in his draft class, and I was like, man, he's going to be a stud. Tennessee finally needed a number 1 wide receiver. It just wasn't there the past couple of seasons. 2020 has been weird. A Corey Davis breakout season is right in line with a nice 2020 narrative there. And, of course, it's always A.J. Brown, wide receiver 1 season. This guy's just an athletic stud. So, in terms of him, he's a matchup nightmare anywhere which way he goes, but given the severity of his ankle injury right now, might just end up going to Corey Davis. The price is simply too cheap on both sites there. He's a focal point of my cash and my GP lines. And of course, you have Derrick Henry. How do you not put Derrick Henry in the month of December, right? Mega chalk today. So am I on board with the Derrick Henry play? Absolutely. He's somebody that I have a ton of exposure to. I don't feel like it's an absolute necessity to get there in cash. He's somebody that could break the slate, but given that his price point is extremely high, you're likely punting a wide receiver where in that point you're getting into some uncomfortable territory, and especially when we get to that Jets game where we're going to cover that together as well. But if you want to fire up Derrick Henry, we're all aboard on that one. Main thing being that, you know what, Jacksonville is dead last DVOA against the run, and he could eat up this offense. So the two ways that I would approach this would be, you know what, you could go Tannehill with Corey Davis and AJ Brown, or just Corey Davis, and then kind of leave Derrick Henry out. Or I'd be completely fine with running Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and Corey Davis. You pretty much you're assuring yourself as much touchdown equity as you can by doing so. Derrick Henry doesn't catch a ton of passes, so obviously you would like to double dip with just the Tanny and Corey Davis stack. But I'm cool with all three. How about you?
Yeah, I am too. I mean, listen, just when you step back and look at this slate overall, you talked about the Titans having, one of the highest implied team totals. I think what it really strikes me about this slate is you have so many high total games, and you have, about half the slate has 50 plus implied team totals, or, 49 and a half if you want to go super technical. But you've got teams with high implied team totals that have star power, right? You've got the Chiefs, you've got the Packers, you've got the Titans. So I think this is, there's 13 games. There's going to be games you and I are just like, yeah, we're not interested. And that's okay, because I think on this slate, there's so many good spots that I'm totally fine just focusing in on those. And I think the Titans is absolutely one of those. So whether you go to you can do this so many different ways, but whether it's a game stack where you're running back some of those cheap Jacksonville guys on the other side, or you can run Henry solo if you want. You can run Tannehill with one or two of the pass catchers and fade Henry. I mean, there's great leverage on this slate, because you mentioned it. I mean, Henry's projected right now to be one of the most popular players, if not the most popular. 25 plus ownership is what we saw before, earlier when you and I were checking. I mean, at that point, you could get Tannehill and run it back with the wide receivers. That becomes great leverage. I mean, and that could just be a different game script that gets you there. So I think this is one of those few games, on a 13-game slate where I think you make it part of your player pool, whether you are doing multi-entry, 3-entry, or even single entry. I think you have to have some component from this game. For me, it's likely Derrick Henry, just because I think he's in such a good spot, and I think I can get different elsewhere.
Let's go. Love it. Next game, we have Houston visiting the Chicago Bears. Do you have any thoughts on this one? Any interest of anybody in particular?
See, this is one of those games where I'm like, it exists. It's there. I do think it's a little interesting. We got the news this morning now that Cooks looks like he's unlikely to play. So now all of a sudden, I mean, that offense just completely has no pass catchers, right? And when you have, we mentioned this before you and I got on air, but it's like David Johnson being out, and all of a sudden, you're seeing Duke Johnson chalk, which sounds super gross. I mean, it's just, there's a lot. This game to me just, I don't know. I don't know that I have to go there. I don't see anything on the high end that I love. And I mean, I think there's going to be some value here that you could use to mix and match if you are looking for some of the cheapies, especially with Cooks being out. We saw it last week with Hansen. I mean, he just went nuts. I mean, dude's still under 4K on DraftKings. And I mean, he had 7 targets last week, 100 plus yards. And now he's going to be, him and Kiki are going to be the two main pass catchers with Cooks being out. So there's some value here. I think that's probably how I would use this game. How about you?
Yeah, not exactly the sexiest of stocks, that's for sure. I'm not really, if I was making a single entry or a 3-max build, I don't think this entire game stack would be something that I would have too much interest in. That being said, there are 2 individual plays that kind of stick out to me, and that's Allen Robinson and David Montgomery. Regardless of whether Houston's offense is in shambles or not, Deshaun Watson's still a top 5 quarterback in the league, in my opinion. And, eventually he'll be able to get to the Bears one way or another. He will put up some points. I just don't think that, I don't think this game shoots out to the extent where this is a full-on, a full-on game stock for me. I'd rather pick on Allen Robinson, taking on Vernon Hargreaves. The guy's absolutely atrocious in coverage there. So, A-Rob can really eat him up, and David Montgomery, if he's ended up going multiple scores on the ground. I mean, we saw what happened last week where, we were on the Trubisky train, and he played really well. Fantasy points aside, He was moving the ball really well. He was accurate with his throws. He handled the pressure fairly well. He just didn't get the touchdowns because, Cordarrelle Patterson was running one in because it's 2020. What else is new? And David Montgomery ended up running the ball fairly well. I mean, that's exactly what it was. So realistically, if you flip the script where, Trubisky possibly even runs one in, we know he could do it with his legs, and then he ends up throwing one instead, that script is completely changed. So yes, David Montgomery's in a great spot. He's coming in mega chalk right now, probably somebody that I'm locking into my cash game lineups just because of the price point and the value that he offers, given that he's likely to exceed 50% plus in cash games. That's not exactly somebody that I'm confident fading, but in GPPs, there are a couple pivots there. So
yeah, well, it's Sia brought up an interesting point because I think Montgomery being popular, you could use that, but I think one way that you could get different is to run this back with that Texans piece because now Watson is somebody that probably will not be super popular, so you could run Watson with one of the pass catchers using Montgomery, and that's a real different way to build because this week we were talking about it a little bit during the week. I mean, quarterback's just loaded, and I think Watson's one of those guys that gets a little bit ignored, especially at the high end now that he's down so many pass catchers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring this up on screen. No, stop with that. See what happens when I hang up and you go crazy on me. You go crazy on me, Duke Johnson. No, gross. But I'm really focusing on Allen Robinson, David Montgomery in this lineup. I like the Hansen call on the other side. He's somebody that I mentioned in my article as well. Yep. Practice squad wide receiver. He's still under 4K on DraftKings. Really won't need much to get you there. And you know what? With a certain Jets wide receiver that's pulling the second highest ownership on the entire slate, that's an easy pivot for me. And I think you're on board on that one as well.
Anyone who's not on the Jets, I'm on board with. We'll get there.
All right. We'll get to some questions here. We'll start at the top. How do you guys view Nick Chubb this week? Is this for season long or?
Yeah, I was going to say I hadn't really thought about it.
Zach, if you could drop in a kind of like a question part 2 to this question, let us know if this is for season long or
if for season long you'd have. I mean, I'm one of those people that when you get to this point in season long, you ride the horse that got you there. You play the best guys, and I don't care about matchup at that point. I mean, he's got that upside, but
yep, absolutely. Henry Davis with a Colin Johnson run back, yeah, absolutely. Personally, there's one guy that we didn't really talk too much about just because I think everybody knows I can talk the full hour and a half on this guy, but James Robinson is the focal point for me in that in that Jacksonville piece that I want, but definitely a pretty penny to pay. So you got to risk it for the biscuit. I was all over him last week. I had him in every single lineup, and he put up 24 DK there. So I think he gets me there again. He's a guy that's a focal point in my lineup, and with the price point that he's at on both sites, I think his ownership is going to be a tad lower than it should be. Watson or Rivers? I'll let you take this one.
Wow, Watson. I mean, it's not hashtag noodle season quite yet.
Never noodle season.
What I love about Watson, and this is it's far less about the play in of itself, but it's the pricing for me is super interesting with him because if you look on DraftKings, Mahomes is going to be $500 more. Aaron Rodgers is $100 cheaper. Everyone who pays up is going to either find the $500 to get to Mahomes, or they're going to take the $100 savings to play Rodgers. There's a reason those guys are 1-2 in ownership. So Watson is just such a great differentiator, and you don't really have to do much else different because you have the same kind of quarterback salary that you're using. So I love Watson in this spot. I've seen a lot of love for Rivers. I'm not quite there, but I love the play for Watson for a DFS perspective this week.
Yeah, for me, it's Watson. You got to play your studs, and that's not the noodle season quarterback that I'm on today. So. Andy Dalton going back to Cincinnati. We will come back to that, CJ. Thank you for the question. We're going to touch on that game shortly. Cash DK. All right, we're getting the full lineups. Trubisky, McKissick, Washington, Adams, Allen Robinson, Hansen, Kelsey, Corey Davis, Dallas. You have any thoughts on this one?
I'm digesting here. I mean, it's strong. I don't even know that I can really argue, honestly, with any of that. I mean, you're using kind of the Washington cheap value at running back. You've got the stud in Adams, and you got a stud in Kelsey, Corey Davis. I mean, all that whole lineup is strong. I mean, I don't know that I love Trubisky, it makes sense with, I guess, with Robinson there. You get a little bit of correlation. Not that you necessarily need that in cash, but I'm perfectly fine with that. I can't really argue with any of those guys.
Yep, I'm cool with it as well. Surprisingly, not a lot of people are going to be playing Kelsey in cash, so that's going to be the spot where I quote unquote get different.
You can't pay up everywhere this week, and there's so many places to pay up.
So, Kelsey's my guy this week. All right, next question. Big T says that you do love the stars and scrubs. Absolutely.
You know it, my man. Brian
Brian D, stars and scrubs. Glennon, Chark, O'Shaughnessy, Henry Davis.
I like that.
Let's go. Akins or Fells? I'll defer this one to you.
I'm gonna go. I would say Akins. Just Fells really hasn't had the targets. Although Akins just drops everything that he does get. But I mean, with this week now, with Cooks being out, there's just gonna be targets everywhere that you could definitely see a path for both of them.
Yeah. I'm out on both, to be honest with you. Said it last week where we don't like playing running backs that are in, timeshares and anything like that. I'm certainly not playing a tight end that's in a timeshare. So I get it that Cooks is out and the targets will open up, but I'm just not buying it. I don't play running backs that are in timeshares. I'm certainly not playing a tight end that splits snaps with 6 other tight ends on that roster. Not happening. How did Ghost go without talking about James Robinson? I snuck it in there. Don't worry about it. See, it says Watson, Kiki, Demont. Let's do it. Dookie equals poopy. There we go. That's it.
Thanks, Rocker.
That's the rocker that we know. All right. We will get going to the next game. We have Denver visiting the Carolina Panthers. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is easy. There's literally nothing on Denver that I'm super interested in. I think Carolina is one of those spots where, with McCaffrey being out and DJ Moore being out, I think the Samuel and Robbie Anderson are great plays. You can use them as one-offs in kind of either cash or GPP. Their ownership has kind of dropped as the week has gone on, interestingly enough, because I think just other places have come up. But, I mean, they're still, in the 10 to 15 range, so they're not super chalky, but they're going to be popular. And I think those are, very solid plays.
Yeah, absolutely. Curtis Samuel gets a slight edge over Robbie Anderson for me just because I don't think Denver is going to be able to keep pace. You have any interest with guys, some guys popping up in our Discord, specifically Melvin Gordon and Tim Patrick? Any interest with those guys? I saw a lot of subs asking questions about those two in particular.
I mean, Gordon is interesting only in the sense of, again, I look at pricing a lot. Pricing dictates a lot of my decision making because I like to look in the range and see what else is there. And I think, when you get down into that range, I think, you've got a guy in Duke Johnson who's projecting much higher ownership right around the same price. And I think people might just punt all the way down with Washington, from Miami's perspective. So there's not really a lot right around him that, I think is super interesting. So he's in like a no man's land. If you look on DK, it's like, with Gaskin being out, because Gaskin was in that spot, but now all of a sudden you're looking at, Booker, Hines, Hyde, AP, like, I guess McKissick I would put into that, but there's not a lot in that range. So I think people will either scroll past him or go all the way down to get more value. So it's a good spot from that perspective.
Yeah, I'm seeing him coming in roughly 3 to 4% owned right now. It keeps flopping back and forth, but either way, a 3 to 4% owned running back against Carolina run defense is something that I'll certainly have interest in. My main concern is not with Melvin Gordon. It's more so with the overall state of that offense, with Drew Lock being able to move the ball. But hey, it's not like this Carolina defense is the top unit in the league either. So I'll probably have a couple shares of Melvin Gordon. Tim Patrick, the one thing that I will say about him is that, he's proven in the past that he could be that guy that can, lock in 6 to 8 targets consistently. Jerry Jeudy's been having an up and down season and really battling some injuries there as well. Whereas Tim Patrick has really just been the go-to guy with Noah Fant for Drew Lock.
Yep.
My main concern there is that last week, when people end up, because I'm not this guy, but I know people end up looking at some game logs and they're like, oh, hey, he caught 2 touchdowns last week. Both touchdowns came inside the 10-yard line. I feel like that's a script where it's not likely to happen again. He's a guy that really likes to stretch the field. And it's more so touchdowns within the 10-yard line. It's more going to be Melvin Gordon running in this time. You have the Chiefs D-line that, and ended up playing fairly well in that game. So for me, it's going to be Melvin Gordon over Tim Patrick, but I do get I do get the interest there. On the Carolina side, for me, it's Samuel over Robbie.
It kind of stops there, right? Like, I don't know that. It's interesting. Mike, it's funny. Weeks ago, it's like McCaffrey out. Everyone puts in Mike Davis, and it's like no one's even talking about him. I mean, I'm not super enthralled because I think the price is still high, as if he's got the starter's role. I don't think the value is there, but that's really it. It's Samuel and Anderson for me, and it's kind of move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike Davis not getting the love that he was in the first 3 weeks, so possibly a good leverage spot, but
it's tough. It's his price is just too high. It's it's like when I'm looking in that range, there's just so many other places. I mean, Montgomery is right above him for $100 more. I mean, how do you not go there?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was telling Jay yesterday. It's not that Mike Davis isn't that Mike Davis is a bad play because he's only pulling 4 to 5% ownership. It's more so just that people open up DraftKings and they're like, hey, David Montgomery's $100 more.
Exactly. Yep. So, pricing matters.
Game. That's it. Exactly. We're moving on to Minnesota at Tampa Bay. What do you think about this one? I love this game.
I love this game too. I love this game to me, this is, we've covered 3 games so far, and this is now the 4th. To me, Tennessee and Jacksonville, and now Minnesota, Tampa are 2 of those games that you kind of, the beginning of the week I wrote off, kind of off to the side as games that I would want in my player pool. This game I think is stackable. I think it's got the star power, and I'm going to say this a bunch. Star power is really, really critical on this slate. There's just too many high ceiling plays and good matchups that I think you're going to need to have 2 or 3 of those guys that go for 35, 40 type point games today. And I think this game has that. I think what is interesting is originally, as I went through the week, this looked like a great spot to attack from a passing stack perspective. You could run back you could have the Minnesota passing game running back with the Tampa Bay passing game. And I think that's probably the ideal way to attack it because from a matchup perspective, up until the bye week, I mean, the last time we saw this Tampa Bay secondary, Tyreek Hill was like backflipping over the goal line, catching for 600 yards in one game. So this is a spot that could really, really go off again. And I like it from a stacking perspective. I also like it from a one-off perspective, and I'll let you talk about the guy that I know you and I are both all about this week, and I have locked and loaded, but I'll let you take it because you were on it first.
I appreciate it. It's Dalvin Cook week, folks. Everyone's debating between Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry. I'll even throw my boy James Robinson in there. I know people likely aren't considering him in the same tier as Aaron Jones and Derrick Henry, but I am, so too bad. James Robinson's in there as well. Man, you have some elite running backs, and nobody's talking about arguably the best running back in the NFL, Mr. Dalvin Cook. Bro, I don't know how people are not playing this guy at 5%, and I get it. I'll play a little devil's advocate. Tampa run defense is stout. Is it though? Is it really?
Here's the piece. You and I were talking about this earlier in the week. The matchup is not great. I agree. There are viable pivots all over the board. The piece that really tilted it, you and I were kicking this around from ownership perspective at the beginning of the week. The piece that really sold me on it, though, was Madison getting ruled out again. There is literally no one else in that backfield who's going to take touches from him now. And you talked about this last week. You were in Discord all week doing 3-6. That's how many 36 touches he had. And he had 40 total touch opportunities if you add in the targets, right? So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's their entire offense. And if this game, if Tampa decides to, change things up, maybe coming out of the bye, you're talking about just the most talented back in the NFL at 5% ownership who's getting all the target share. They have no one else there. So, I mean, I'm in lockstep with you, man. He is in my lineups right now. I think he is a fantastic tournament play.
Yeah, he's my number one tournament play on the board. When we combine both ownership and every other factor that we look at, he's by far my number one tournament play on the board. So Vita Vea has been ruled out for the season, right? That was Tampa Bay's nose tackle. He was the focal point of that run stopping offense. He got ruled out, and then Steve McClendon comes in at the nose tackle position, and he does a fairly good job. He's actually ranked one of, if not their highest rated run defender. He's also possibly out now.
Yep.
Then you have Jamel Dean that's trending towards being out in this game. So Justin Jefferson might be able to burn them on the outside. They're going to have to drop back in coverage, possibly pull their linebackers out of the box. You get Dalvin Cook that busts through that line. There's nobody on planet Earth that's stopping him. There's nobody there. There's nobody there that's going to be stopping him. Mike Zimmer needs this game. He needs to save his job. They need to make the playoffs. They're one game out right now. He needs it. And then on top of that, they're quietly a top 5 offense of the NFL. If you ask anybody right now on, casual football fan on the street, you're going to say who are the top 5 offenses in the NFL. They're probably going to name you Chiefs, Packers, Seahawks, and then kind of figure out the other 2, right? Vikings are quietly been one of the top 5 offenses in the NFL. And then, like you said, 36 touches for my man Dalvin Cook last week. 36. If I told you a wide receiver could get 36 targets, I'm pretty sure we would all want it. That's unheard of. So 36 touches. And then on top of that is, people are saying, oh, but he's not as active in the passing game. It's kind of like the knock on Dalvin Cook to a lesser extent. And it's even more so on Derrick Henry, right? These guys are not as involved in the passing game. They're not, because people see what J.D. McKissick does, and they, sometimes people would like every running back to get 10 targets. Dalvin Cook ran 37 routes last week. His previous season high was 23. So for all the concerns that are, possibly saying he's not involved in the passing game, that's done. The guy ran 37 routes last week, had 6 targets. Like, this to me at 5% ownership is such a leverage play over Derrick Henry. And this is really hard for me to say because everyone knows like the guy's literally my cover on my article. It's Derrick Henry month. I play him every single week after Thanksgiving. Dalvin Cook is our top tournament play of the day by far.
I'm 100% with you.
By far a smash spot for him. And then I also like Justin Jefferson on the Viking side as well. I really think that with Jamal Dean out, he's going to be able to stretch the field. So give me Jeff over Thielen. On the Tampa side, it's noodle season. Tom Brady, never thought I'd actually get there, play a noodle arm quarterback. But hey, this Vikings defense absolutely blows. So I'm all over it with Mr. Mike Evans and Ronald Jones. So key thing for Ronald Jones is that middle linebacker Eric Kendricks has been ruled out. He is, no offense. Well, I don't even want to say no offense, just a fact. He's the only good run defender on that Vikings defense. They one and only one that takes the field. So he's been ruled out. Rojo's going to have a field day, and this has nothing to do with Bruce Arians saying that, we want to get Rojo 20-plus touches because we all know that's not going to happen. But he doesn't need 20-plus touches to be able to bust off some large gains here. I think he finds the end zone at least once, possibly twice. And when we're talking about guys that have that 30-plus point upside to pivot off the David Montgomery chalk, Ronald Jones is my guy right there. On both FanDuel and DraftKings, he's way too cheap. And Mike Evans is one of my top GBP wide receivers on the board as well. More so on DraftKings at 6,600. That price is just disrespectful for Mike Evans. I mean, this guy you can make the argument that when we're talking about pure talent and raw athleticism, this guy's a top 5 wide receiver in the league. So
I want to bring, there's a good question in the chat. I just brought it up. How would you stack this game if you use Cook? And I think we're touching on it here, but I think that this is, we talked about this game is a phenomenal game stacking spot. So if you were to use Cook on one side, how do you run it back on the Tampa side? Is that where you go Mr. Noodles and Mr. Evans? Yeah,
that's one of my 3 maxes right now. I got Noodle Season, Tom Brady, Rojo, and Mike Evans running it back with Dalvin Cook, and then I just duplicate that lineup and ran it back with Justin Jefferson instead of Dalvin Cook.
Yep, love it.
That's the way that I approached it.
This is one of the
a great game.
We spent a lot of time on it, but there's a reason. It's a fantastic game, and I think there's so many different scripts that you could see playing out with this game on either side. So I think this is one of those games where, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but this is far less about the individual plays, and it's almost like a showdown, right? Where you're predicting the script versus the individual plays, but it's a great spot.
Yep, absolutely love this game. We'll get through some quick questions here. Brian, the Nelson Aguilar whisperer, MG3 100 plus 2 TDs.
All right,
let's go. Wheels up.
Your lips to God's ears, my friend.
A good wide receiver for value, 6,000. If you're talking about value, I assume that's FanDuel because that's typically the bottom range of FanDuel. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but after we answer, I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel at 5,900.
That's a great point.
On DraftKings, I'd probably go Corey Davis, 5,700.
For sure.
15-man tournament, Logan Thomas or Dalton Schultz? Logan Thomas.
Logan, yeah.
Yep. Hunter Henry or Evan Engram? Ooh, I like that one.
I say Henry.
Yeah.
I'm a little. I saw some. We haven't gotten to the Giants game yet. I'm not super interested in that game. But one note that I did see floating around this morning was they might actually keep Colt McCoy in for some of the packages and give like Daniel Jones a break, which blows my mind. But anytime I hear that going into a game that they might do like multiple quarterbacks, I'll just roll with Henry. I think it's safer.
Yeah. On that note, let's go Hunter Henry. That's for sure. Colt McCoy coming in. Wow.
I saw that before. I gotta see where I found it.
Kamara, Chubb, or Jacobs, full point PPR. For me, it's Kamara, Chubb.
Chubb.
Jacobs' health is in question there.
For sure.
How do they fit all that chicken in that tiny little biscuit? Stobie, kill me, buddy. Every single time. Never a doubt. Logan's my number one tight end. Goes one thing you miss on Titan Jags, 3 TD Henry game. Oh boy. 3 TD Dalvin Cook game. Let's go. Tannehill, number one GBP quarterback. DK Cash, Rogers, Washington, McKissick, Samuel, Davis, Thomas, Keenan.
It's a lot of the same as the one that got posted before. I think the only difference there is you're going Rogers, Adams versus I think he had Trubisky with Robinson, but it's a lot of the same guys. Makes sense.
Yep. How do you stack that game? We covered that. Do I roll the dice with Murray today or pick someone up? I assume you mean Kyler Murray and not Latavius. I really hope you're not rolling the dice with Latavius Murray.
That's my boy. That's my boy Frank.
Kyler Murray. Yeah, go ahead first. Go ahead.
I mean, here's my perspective. You have Kyler Murray is one of the best quarterbacks, and this is you play the guys that got you there. He's just too good, and I know the Giants' defense is legit. I mean, I think they are legitimately a very talented unit, but I think Murray is just one of those guys where I mean, Frank, I don't know who's on the waiver wire, but it's one of those things that by the end of the day, you could be sitting there kicking yourself, and why didn't I just play the best guy? You took Murray early for a reason. And you've built around him all year, I'd stick with him.
Yeah, unless you're picking up unless it's like a 6 or 8 team league where you have top 12 quarterbacks on the waiver wire, you got to go with Kyler there.
Like Jalen Hurts.
Oh my God, you're killing me. We're gonna game stack 5 players from that game. Yeah, wheels up. If you can make it fit, go for it. It's really hard to fit Cook and Jefferson in there with Noodle Season, Rojo, and Mike Evans, but if you could somehow make that fit, I'm all aboard. Highest ceiling under 2,900 DK. This is a pure Brian question.
Highest ceiling tight end under 2,900. Hold, please. So there's a couple guys here. We talked about Akins already and kind of the Houston piece. Cole Kmet, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but I'm not here for pronunciation. I think the target share there has been just incredibly consistent, and it keeps increasing. So I think he's a great play at 2.9K versus Houston, and a nice cheap way to get some exposure to that game. So that's the guy. That's where I'll go for now.
Leonard Fournette is inactive.
Oh.
Let's
go. Rojo season, huh?
I'm gonna say, let's go.
Oh, boy.
Next game, next game, because if I was with Sticks, he'd be telling me I'm talking too much. I got to move it up.
Writing it down. Let's go.
Arizona Giants. You have any interest in this game at all? Anybody?
Not really. I mean, there's talent here. I think you could look at the Giants side. I think Gallman is fun. Like, this is the kind of game where if you told me I'm playing Kyler Murray with DeAndre Hopkins and I'm running it back with Gallman, I'd go, sure, like totally fine. Or I'm playing Kenyon. Yes, like, they're all perfectly valuable, like viable options. They are fine, but like that's where it ends. I don't know that I would go anywhere. There's not a lot in this. This is where, if we want to make up time, this is probably one of those games that I just say, it's fine, but it's not optimal.
Yeah, I'm okay with running Gallman. Somehow, somewhere, this guy always finds a way to get into the end zone. And I actually think, believe it or not, Daniel Jones being under center actually helps them, especially when he's replacing a guy like Colt McCoy. So I don't mind some Wayne Gallman. I wouldn't be correlating him with Giants defense. I know they have a pretty stout unit, but no way am I ever playing a defense against Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. That'll never happen. So. I'm okay with Gallman, and that's basically it from this game. Until I see, it's going to suck when it happens, but Kyler's going to go off one game, and everyone's going to know that his shoulder is fine, and then I'll be back on board. But until I see it, it's going to be a no from me.
Yep.
Next game, Kansas City at Miami. I know you love this one. Take it away.
So I think the industry likes this one more than I actually do. Listen. Kansas City is one of those. Again, I'm gonna keep coming back to this concept. This slate has multiple high-end stars, and you're going to need them. So there's a reason we're going to talk about the Packers. We've already talked about the Titans. We talked about that Minnesota Tampa Bay game. This game is similar, although it's really just on the Kansas City side, right? Anytime you want to go and start your builds with, Mahomes and Hill and Kelsey, have at it. I really struggle with this one, and I am not a Vegas guy at all. I'm not big into, tracking that. I just want, how in the world is Miami keeping this game close? It's like, they're just not that talented. And they've scored, I think the last 3 weeks, it's been like, 10 to 20 points a week. I just don't know how they're going to keep it close. And do you really get a ceiling from these guys? And it's not like they're coming in low owned either. It's like Mahomes is the most popular quarterback right now that I'm seeing. Actually, if I look, Kelsey is the third most popular right now overall, and he's by far the most high from a tight end perspective. Tyreek Hill right now is coming in as the second highest owned wide receiver behind Devontae Adams. So this isn't a sneaky stack whatsoever. I love it, but I don't know that I see ceiling. If that sounds, I'm sure that'll come back to bite me later, but I just don't know that this is the matchup where they just go nuts.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly on the same page, and we actually hadn't spoken about this one before too. So for me, it's you can't really stop Tyreek Hill. It's more like you could slow him down to a certain extent. He has some of these games where he goes 4 for 60, 5 for 75 to that kind of extent, and you can't have 5 receptions, 75 yards for a guy that's $8,500 and coming in as the second highest owned wide receiver on the slate, right? So for me, it's Mahomes and Kelsey, and it ends right there. I think Miami stops the run fairly easy here. Lev Bell has looked pretty pedestrian out there, and CH, illnesses, injuries, injury report week in, week out, this and that. I'm not buying that he's 100% right now. So I think Mahomes goes out and slings it for 60 minutes. Honestly, they're still chasing the Steelers for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Just reminder to everyone that's listening, there's only one team that gets a bye this year, right? So with the expanded playoff format. So Mahomes needs that number 1 seed. Andy Reid loves to get a bye and go into the playoffs cruising. So I think he goes out and slings it. But for me, it's got to be a Kelsey day over Tyreek. Tyreek's going to have his hands full with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones on the outside there. So can you stop him? No. Can you slow him down? I think they slow him down just enough for it to be a Kelsey day. But that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, and then I think what's interesting about this one is you're going to see if this stack ends up winning you something. There he is. He's alive. If this stack ends up winning you something, I think it's going to be kind of chalky, right? Because it'll be the Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, and you're going to run it back with cheap Washington on the other side, 4K as the cheap.
That's like 120% aggregate.
I just feel like it's either you're going to do that and then hope that the other 4 or 5 guys in your lineup help differentiate you, or you just go away from this entire. I don't see a lot of paths with this, which makes me nervous. I love the plays in a vacuum. I don't see it being where I'm going to go.
Absolutely. Next game, we got my Dallas Cowboys visiting Cincinnati. Anything of interest to this game at all? Low total here, coming in at 43 total points.
It's a low total. The one thing that I will say about this game is that there's a lot of, I don't know that I want to say value necessarily, but it's kind of like
that. Underpriced. A lot of guys.
Yes, that is the perfect way to say it. It's like there's nothing here. Amari Cooper is the only guy, and I'm purposely excluding Ezekiel Elliott because I just don't think he's viable anymore. I just don't think we've seen it. But it's Cooper is the only one over 5K when you look at the wide receivers in this entire game. So this becomes, we talked about it. If you want to stack up, and we've had this conversation in Discord with a few folks this week. You want to stack up the big high-priced running backs, this could be the game where you use Dalton with some of these cheap Cowboys pass catchers. And I think there's a couple different ways that you could go. It's viable in that build only. It's not where you would start. But if you're trying to get all the big backs in, I think that's where you go.
Yeah. I think for these large field tournaments where we end up seeing guys, tens of thousands of people in some of these massive contests, the $5, $10, $20 range there. I think Zeke is a guy that I would have a bit of interest in. He did look fairly good last week. He was running pretty strong, but the O-line is still banged up. For me, it's more so like if you're playing Zeke, you got to stack it with Cowboys D, and you're really playing the script that Ryan Finley is just checking it down. They're constantly going 3 and out, and Zeke is just gonna have a day. At that point, though, do we see more Tony Pollard? Is this an Andy Dalton, like a big revenge scenario where he's coming back to Cincinnati and showing them that he should have signed him? And hey, like if Joe Burrow would have gone down, you could have had me and I could have led you to the playoffs, kind of thing. Like there's a bunch of things there. This game overall is not exactly one of my even top 8 games on the board here. So
no, it's really, to me, it's the only way I look at it. It's a cheap passing stack that allows you to get the 2 or 3 big studs that you want elsewhere. That's where it's viable.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Get to some questions here. Rocker, load up on Rojo. Yep. Absolutely.
Agreed. That's probably, since we've come on air, I think that's the one piece of news that's really dropped that I think we should. I don't want to say tinker, but like, when you're looking at your lineups, that's one that now I think changes where your core might be.
Absolutely. Would have been nice to get him at 3 to 4%. But
you won't now. He might actually get those 20 touches though.
Tannehill or Brady. If you're playing, for me, it's kind of like a 2-part answer. Overall, Brady has a good game script, but I'm going Tannehill here. And especially if you're not playing Derrick Henry in this lineup, you absolutely need Tannehill. 30.5 implied team total. They have the highest implied team total on the board. Vegas knows.
Well, I think the other way too. Now with Rojo getting ownership, Brady now becomes leverage off that. It's like the perfect. It's a great either or.
Yeah, I think in this lineup, like either way, Henry, Rojo, Dalvin Cook, like these guys were all focal points of my main lineup when I published the article on yesterday afternoon. So the Fournette news just reinforces the fact that I love Rojo for my lineup, so I don't have to tinker anything there. And for me, it's if you can't get Henry and Rojo, whatever running back that you're not playing, play that quarterback.
Agreed.
Like if you're not playing Henry, you got to play Tannehill. If you're not playing Rojo, you got to play Brady.
Nailed it.
The boys, Sticks, happy to see you're alive, buddy. Hope you're doing well.
We're not sure if that's really him.
Defenses in the Cowboys Cincy game. Yeah, absolutely, Stoby. That's a great point. Jets at Seattle. You got any thoughts on this one? I'm seeing some rain coming in. They have this game's ugly, man.
I just listen. I'm a Jets fan, so I'm sitting here as the week goes on, and you just see, this news that all of a sudden, like, Brashad Perryman and Braxton Berrios are going to be chalky value, and it's just terrifying. I mean, listen, I understand the logic. The logic is there. With Crowder, I mean, we still don't. I just checked. I don't see that Crowder has been formally ruled out. Certainly seems like he's unlikely to play. I mean, the last time he sat out, I tweeted this out earlier because, I think people just need to sometimes look back. There was a game against the Bills a few weeks ago where Crowder sat. Darnold started that game. I mean, between Berrios and Perriman, I mean, they combined for 6 catches and barely broke 60 yards. Like, I get it. I understand that we need value. But, listen, Seattle's defense has, they started the year terribly. If you look back at the last couple games, they're really starting to play a lot better on the backside of their defense. And so, it's not like Pete Carroll's not going to realize that Brashad Perriman is the only skill player the Jets have out there. Like, it's like we all sit here and go, he's all they got. Yeah. Like, you don't think Pete Carroll knows that? So he'll just run like a bracket coverage and then not let him go there. And then Darnold's going to have to throw to other people. I mean, I think this game is going to get some popularity, which is odd to say. I mean, if I'm looking right now, it's like Metcalf and Wilson, and then you're running it back on the other side with Perriman. All of those guys have double-digit ownership. So that's going to be like a very, I think, kind of popular 2v1, which good for you, but no thanks.
For me, it's Metcalf and Wilson. That's it. Jets are dead last DVOA against the pass, and I think Russ really cooks them. Their run defense is
legit.
It's decent. I think it's slightly overrated to what it's being compared to, but it's still good.
Yep.
And I really think Jamal Adams has an absolute field day here versus his former club.
I hope so. I actually do hope so. I like
that's pretty much what I was saying. Last week when they had an easy matchup, I said Jamal Adams is pretty much not going to play safety. He's going to be in the box the entire game, and that's exactly what he did.
Yep.
It's going to be the same thing here. So not much interest from this game. It's more so not even a stack. It's just pair Wilson with Metcalf just to get different. You don't have to necessarily run a full game stack. Yep. And I'm completely off this Jets chalk. Jets are bad. Chalk is bad. Jets chalk is oof. That's someone else for me. Vegas Indy noodle season. You got any thoughts on this one? Noodle season heading into Vegas. Hey,
so this is one of those games where I think it's got the high total and it's kind of going to be a little bit ignored. Like I don't see a lot of people talking about this game, but I think it's a great spot that you can use. I don't know that I love it, but I understand why you would go here. Because to me, this is another one like we talked about with Dallas. Like that Dallas-Cincinnati game, all the skill position players are cheap. Like you look at the wide receivers here, they're all $5K and cheaper, right? You've got Carr and you've got Rivers in that $5, $6K price range. Like this is a very undervalued or underpriced kind of game that you can attack.
Absolutely. Vegas defense is absolutely atrocious. Guys that have been picking up steam, T.Y. Hilton, Jonathan Taylor, even Pittman. These are guys that, they don't necessarily have the highest of ceilings, but it'll only take them one play. I'm still off the Colts running back situation. At any point in time, it could be Naheem Hines, it could be Jordan Wilkins. So from that standpoint, that's it. It's a large field play only for me on Jonathan Taylor, but the upside is definitely there in this matchup. There's no denying that. And then T.Y. Hilton, again, he's a guy that can break any slate, but does he get it done? We don't know here. This is a game that I'm staying away from. I don't have any stock invested into this game.
No.
Not on either side. Colts defense is pretty good. Again, slightly overrated to what it's being compared to, but it's still a good unit. And I'm out. This game is a big time fade for me.
Sorry, Derek Carr. You don't get to face Greg Williams' defense this week.
Yeah, that's it. Like you're not going to get blitzed when they're supposed to be playing prevent. That's for sure.
Yep.
We'll burn through some questions here, and then we got 4 games left. How would you make a showdown lineup with KC Miami? I think you got to lock in Mahomes or Kelsey at captain. If you're getting different, KC defense would probably.
I would almost do like the onslaught concept, right? Where
you go 5-1.
You go 5-1. You go Chiefs defense, with Mahomes and Kelsey Hill, and maybe try and get in like CEH or Lev or something like that, and then just take the cheapest possible Miami guy.
That's it. Exactly. DK Cash, Berrios, Keenan Allen, or Davis Samuel? Davis Samuel.
It's not close.
Not even close. Yeah, not even close. Julio out. Is it Christian Blake time? No, not yet. Not yet. Maybe next week. Not yet, though. Not right now. And we will get to that game in a little bit. Akins or Logan Thomas?
Logan Thomas.
Yep, same thing for me. I'm not playing tight ends that are in timeshares. That's for sure. Green Bay visiting Detroit. Aaron, you got any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is the game, right? I mean, I think this is where pretty much your first decision point. I mean, I know we're going game by game and we're going schedule wise, so it took us a little while to get here. But I think this is like decision point number 1 on what you plan on doing this week, because the Packers have the highest total for a reason, and they have the star power that can win you this slate and likely will. It just depends on how exactly you're getting there. The nice part about it is that it's 3 guys and 3 guys only. So it's, are you playing Rodgers? Are you playing Devontae Adams? Are you playing Aaron Jones? Some combination of the 3, all 3, whatever it is. I think that this is where most people need to start their discussion on what they're going to do this week, because I think that this is where one side of this game, whether I think you go Rodgers, Adams, or you go Aaron Jones, I think that will be optimal when we sit back and look at this, at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. This was the script that both of us had mentioned in each one of our articles, is that, for me, it's not whether you play this game or not. It's more so, do you take path 1 or path 2?
Correct.
Path 1 being, am I playing Rodgers with Adams and possibly, a guy like Robert Tonyan or maybe even Aaron Jones, or am I playing Aaron Jones solo? Like, to me, you have to have exposures to this game. And my favorite run back on the other side has to be Deandre Swift, and honorable mention to TJ Hawkinson as well. I think Hawk eats in this game. Marvin Jones is going to be preoccupied by Jair Alexander. I've said since the beginning of the season, week 1. I think I said that Jair Alexander will be recognized as the best corner in 2020, and if he's not, he will be by the end of the season. And he's just having a monster of a year. That's not somebody that I want to target in a one-on-one matchup. Certainly not a wide receiver. That's Marvin Jones. I mean, he's no DK Metcalf. He's no Devontae Adams. He's no Tyreek Hill. Any of these guys that can, burn with speed, win contested jump balls, anything like that. Marvin Jones has had a great career, don't get me wrong, but he's not winning that matchup versus Jair. So Hawk is in a great spot to run some routes over the middle. And, bro, we say it time in, time out. You got to attack this Green Bay run defense. You have to attack this run defense. DeAndre Swift is in. Yep. He's healthy. They are not going to risk his future to play him in a meaningless Week 14 game. I think I've said that for at least 1 or 2 running backs for like 6 consecutive weeks now. starting with Dalvin Cook coming off injury in Week 8. Like, teams will not mortgage these running backs' futures to possibly win a meaningless game.
Yep.
Like, Minnesota activated Dalvin Cook in Week 8 because he was 100% healthy, and they knew we need this guy to win football games, or I'm going to get fired. Mike Zimmer said that to himself. Like, we need Dalvin Cook. Is he 100%? They said yes. Okay, we're gonna run him into the ground.
Yep.
Because these guys all signed mega contract extensions. Then what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do if DeAndre Swift hurts himself in a meaningless Week 14 game? You're gonna sit there twiddling your thumb, saying, "Okay, now we have to draft another running back." Like, no. Like, if DeAndre Swift is active in this game. He's 100% healthy. He was gaining some momentum before his, he had concussion scares, and then he was dealing with illnesses here and there. Who isn't in 2020, right? So
they actually, I was just looking. They said that there was some confusion around a COVID test for him this morning, and initially,
that's it. Like,
but it looks like he's cleared to play now. So I think
that's it. So I'm all aboard DeAndre Swift. Exact same price as David Montgomery. So when we were talking about David Montgomery, and I said possible GBP pivots,
this is the guy. Yeah. So what's your preferred path on this? Do you go Rodgers, Adams, or do you go Aaron Jones? Because I think you have to path 1 or path 2. 2 points.
Yeah. For me, it's Aaron Jones. Devontae Adams is if you're looking at upside floor combination, Devontae Adams is in a league of his own on this very slate. No Jeff Okudah for the Lions. Even if he was active, he would smoke him. And then Desmond Trufant is not active either. He's going up against 3rd and 4th string cornerbacks. Aaron Rodgers in a dome. Like to me, it's like the definition of a smash spot. My main concern is that at $9,300 at wide receiver, he needs to put up 100 yards and 2 scores minimum.
And at that point, you're almost the problem with that is if you're assuming you get a Devontae Adams ceiling game, you're assuming 2 to 3 touchdowns, and at that point, you almost have to play him with Rodgers. Like I don't really see a way that he gets to pay off that price without also getting Rodgers. And the problem with that is then you look at the ownership. Rodgers is either 1 or 2, depending on where you look from a ownership perspective at quarterback, and Adams is the number 1 wide receiver. So like to me, Aaron Jones was the play that I think you and I were on early this week as a building block. The fact that he's actually leveraged now off the chalk, not that it's bad chalk, but now that he's the leverage spot makes me like it even more.
Yeah, exactly. Like for me, it's like we saw lineups in Discord where people were asking, they're setting lineups with Devontae Adams, no Rodgers. For me, it's like if you're playing Adams, you got a pot commit. You are 100%
for tournaments. Let's just be clear for tournaments.
Ship your chips into the Rodgers Adams combination, because if Adams is paying off at that price tag or he's breaking the slate, he's not a running back. He's not Dalvin Cook where he can go for 51 DraftKings points and you don't need him with Cousins. You don't need him with anybody else because he is a running back.
Totally agree.
If Adams is breaking the slate, you need to have him with Aaron Rodgers. Exactly. Yep. That means Aaron's throwing for 300 plus. He's throwing for 3 TDs, hopefully all to Devontae Adams, and that's the route that you're taking. Or you take the Aaron Jones route. Personally, I'm going Jones Swift mini stack or Jones Hawkinson or Tanyan Swift as well. I think that garners some interest as well. $4,200 Bob Tanyan. All right, we'll get to some questions quickly. Rojo, make your cash lineup for DK. He was already in my cash lineup, but yeah,
I think he has to now.
Absolutely. I think he has to now. He was my, I always get different in 1 or 2 spots. In my cash lineup, that was the one spot that I get different. So I'm going to have to get different in another one just to jump over the trains. But yeah, he was already in my cash lineup. I love it. DK Cash, Rodgers, Jones, McKissick, Allen, Davis, Patrick, Schultz, Ronald Jones, Washington. Don't play Rodgers with Aaron Jones.
Agreed. That's the first thing that jumped out at me too. If you got Rodgers, got to get Adams in there.
The rest is fine. I would also pivot from Schultz down to Logan Thomas. I don't like two Washington guys in the same lineup, but both of them are coming in fairly chalky where they just won't hurt you.
Yep.
McKissick and Logan Thomas are fine. Kirk, Rojo, Gordon, Evans, Thielen, Samuel, Thomas, Jefferson, Washington.
Those are all players.
So
sure.
the main fact is Kirk with Thielen and Jefferson. You're running it back with Rojo, and then you have Rojo and Evans, and then you have Logan Thomas with Washington D and Gordon. Yep. The one thing I'm concerned about this game is that there's no star power in there, so you're fading all of them.
I agree.
No Devontae Adams, no Cook.
It's a balanced build. People aren't going to do that this week. Stars and Scrubs is going to win this week. I mean, I say that every week, but I really do believe it. But balanced will definitely be contrarian this week for sure.
Absolutely. Tannehill, Cook, Henry. I like this. This is a lot of way that I started some of my builds. Davis, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Boyd. Ooh, Tyler Eifert, Washington.
Eifert's in. I just saw that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if this lineup was 6 weeks ago, you wouldn't have been able to do this because of CD and Tyler Boyd's
seriously.
So, you could take advantage of that Dallas Cincy game, hopefully. And if anyone's going to do well, it's both out of those guys out of the slot for their respective teams. So It's worth it to Jamin, Cook, and Henry. I like it. Swift or J-Rob? Always J-Rob. Always J-Rob.
Yep.
Ignore price. Who will have more points, D Swift or Mike
Swift?
Davis?
That's not
Swift, 100%. $3,700 or less wide receiver for cash. Ideally, you don't want to be punting that low.
How dare you?
In cash? Come on, in cash?
I don't play cash. You know that.
Yeah, I know that.
I'm just looking to see if there's anybody else in that. I know your boy Cordarrelle Patterson's in that. He's 36. Oh, how much did he say? 37? I was going to say because Gallup at 38 is strong.
Yeah, try and get up to Gallup at 38. That's a good call. I like that. Say those again. Say who the Green Bay mini stacks. I got Swift with Jones, Swift with Tanyan, and Jones with Hawkinson, I believe, are the three that I have. Because I don't like going double tight end, so I'm not going
nope.
Tanyan and Hawkinson.
That worked last week. That's your 1 week. It's going to work.
Yeah, enjoy it while I lost it. Tannehill, Jones, Evans, Davis, Hansen, Hurst, Eckler, Cards. Strong. I like it.
Yep.
Jags Tennessee game going to be chalky. It's actually not coming in as chalky as it should be. Only chalky piece right there is Derrick Henry right now. Yep. It's my favorite game on the board.
Corey Davis, Corey Davis too, I guess. I'm seeing.
That's true. I feel like that's more so just that he's extremely underpriced. So
yeah, he'll be a cash game kind of staple for people.
Absolutely. All right, let's burn through these three last games. We got Washington at San Fran. Any interest in this game at all?
It's McKissick, Logan Thomas, and C.
Yeah, absolutely. No interest on the San Fran side. I could get down with Brandon Ayuk, I guess. But it's even fine. Then, it's fine. It's not somebody that I'm in love with. But it's fine. At 5,400, I'd rather just get up to Corey Davis for $300 more, at least on DraftKings. FanDuel, he is extremely underpriced, though. So more of a FanDuel play for me, Brandon Ayuk, than it is on DraftKings. DraftKings, you just got to find a way to get up to Corey Davis. On the Washington side, McKissick chalk, definitely worthy because of full point PPR on DraftKings. I'd be a little cautious of that on the FanDuel side. Anybody that's the thing that's out there focusing on FanDuel right now. Don't necessarily lock in McKissick as easily as you do on FanDuel as you do on DraftKings. And no one's talking about Scary Terry. So if you want some ultimate leverage there, Antonio Gibson's out. Everyone went to McKissick and Logan Thomas because they think Alex Smith is going to dump it off. Nobody's playing Terry McLaurin.
He's in that no man's land too. It's like he's right between Mike Evans and Thielen. Like no one's going to play him.
Allen Robinson's $100 more than him too. So
I missed him.
Nobody's playing Terry McLaurin. So if you want to leverage off McKissick, it's probably Logan.
And you can use him. And what's nice about him is you don't have to do anything but use him as a one-off. It's like there's nothing. You don't have to do any sort of stacking or correlation. You could just play McLaurin by himself.
Absolutely. I will let you take this one away. New Orleans at Philadelphia.
Yeah, buddy. Now we're talking. Listen, I'm on an island here, and I get it. This is the game. I love this game. I love this game not because necessarily of the individual plays in it. Again, it is totally slate context. I want to build around multiple stars. I want to have 2 to 3 stars into my lineups for tournaments. I think that is what is going to win you the week. It's where I'm going. It's where I've been all week, and I have not budged off of it. In order to do that, you are going to need some cheap passing stacks. On the Sirius show last night, I brought this up. Jason and I were talking about what our bold call of the week was. Our bold call is that a 5K quarterback isn't the Millie Maker winner. Now, he thinks it's Mike Glennon. I think it's Jalen Hurts. And I know, listen, the Philly side of this game, they got a sub-20 implied total from a Vegas perspective. I understand they've looked terrible. But I went back and I started watching that Eagles game from the moment they brought in Hurts, and they looked like they have the ability to be DFS relevant. I'm not saying they're going to win the game. I'm not saying they're going to put up 30 points. I think Adam, our boy Adam, made such a great point when I brought this up earlier. He's like, this just feels like Taysom Hill 3 weeks ago, where you thought about the rushing upside, but you didn't know what to do with the rest of the team. And I think this is where Hurts could really, really pay off. They've already talked about they plan on using the RPO. And this is how the Eagles won the Super Bowl, right? They used that RPO a few years ago, and they're catering their offense to Hurts' strength. So they're going to use him in design runs. But what really impressed me watching him was anytime the pocket collapsed, anytime there was any pressure, he immediately moved out of the pocket, used his speed and used his legs to get there. But he didn't always just look to run. He went and he would look first downfield. He had a beautiful sideline route to Jalen Reagor, had a nice touchdown pass to Greg Ward. But when it wasn't there, it's like he had the instinct just to run, get the positive yards. And I think, a couple weeks ago, we saw it with Taysom Hill. He put up 25 points that first game. And that was the game he was a tight end on FanDuel, right? So everyone was playing him there. But even on DraftKings, people were laughing because he didn't really he only threw 20 passes. But he ended up putting up 25 plus DraftKings points because he ran it double-digit times, ran in 2 scores. I think that there is a path for Hurts here. And at 5K, literally, you plug him in, you plug in a punt defense, and you just get off and running. And now it's like, hi, do you want Dalvin Cook and you want Devontae Adams and you want Derrick Henry? They're all in play. So I think there's a lot that we can do with this game. I love it. I know I'm on an island. I see the comments in here. I've seen it all week in chat. I saw it on the Sirius show last night.
We've become friends. Oh my God.
Listen,
I will keep away from the Eagles hate there. He knows I make fun of noodle season wins and stuff. So it's all in good fun, of course, as a Cowboys fan. But look, if we're keeping things realistic and positive at the same time, Jalen Hurts does have the rushing upside. Mm-hmm. There's no denying that. So if there's a path to him getting there, if this was a $5,100 quarterback that was completely immobile, like a Phillip Rivers kind of situation, like a 25-year-old Rivers, not actually Phillip Rivers, but like somebody that's immobile as Phillip Rivers, that's where you're like, man, this is rough. He's gonna have to sling it downfield. Jalen Hurts doesn't necessarily have to do that, right? We saw his time at Oklahoma. He has these QB draws where he just runs up the middle for 30-yard touchdowns. If you're playing that angle, I dig it. It's definitely something that could work. And when we're talking about $5,000 quarterbacks, for me, it's him and Mike Glennon, right? So,
yep. Brian, listen, you looked at that game. If you look at watch the game, but separate that from the fantasy component, right? Just because it Hurts there was parts where he struggled, right? He threw a terrible interception. But again, I'm not worried about whether the Eagles win. I don't care. I'm a Jets fan. I stopped caring about who wins and loses a long time ago. The reality is he came in midway through that third quarter and he put up over 10 DK points. You extrapolate that over a full game. You're talking about if he gets you 20 at 5K, you are off and running. And I think it is absolutely in the realm of possibilities today. So that's where I am putting my foot down. I got Jalen Hurts, and I will see you later.
Flag's been planted.
My flag is planted. I'm either winning all the money or I'm losing all the money. And that's tournament life, baby.
Let's do it. I love it. I love the ownership perspective, and you know what? It's it could really get you there. I'll be rooting for you. That's for sure.
Hey man, listen, you'll know how it's, I mean, I'm planting the flag there because I think, again, it's not about, you could play Hurts as a one-off, but I think, you look at their passing game, whether it's, Dallas or Ertz from a tight end perspective, you look at the receivers and Rieger, Ward, like they're all 3-4K. So like this stack is just super cheap and it allows you to get everything that you really want. I didn't start the week out going, I'm all in on Jalen Hurts. I'm all in on Jalen Hurts because I want Derrick Henry, because I want Dalvin Cook, right? It's like, that's the reason I'm down this path, just to be clear.
Let's do it. Atlanta Chargers game, going to shoot out or under the radar. We are about to talk about that game in 3, 2, 1. Atlanta visiting the Chargers. You have any thoughts on this one?
This is a great game. I think this is like that late. It's a game that I think because of how the week has kind of gone, this is a game that I think could be a great GPP like hammer, because if you look at how this game is, like the pricing on it, the guys are priced up, right? There's not a lot of value necessarily. So, if you're looking at Herbert at 6,800, if you're looking at, Keenan Allen at 7,700, Julio being out, we talked about this on the show last night, like Ridley seems like a great play, but he's already at 7,500. So like these guys are already priced for their ceiling, which is why you're probably not seeing this really pop as a highly owned game. So I think it's a great game as you look at the plays in isolation. I think the pricing is what's keeping people, maybe from going in a little bit overboard.
Yeah. This is the game that, individual plays are not necessarily pulling a ton of ownership. It's mostly Calvin Ridley and Keenan Allen. I'm completely off this game. To be honest with you, I think this is, when we're talking about games that are going to be disappointment of the week, I feel like this game has that written all over it. Yep. Atlanta offense without Julio is something that I stay as far away from as possible. Julio completely changes the dynamic of that offense, and certainly changes the dynamic of Calvin Ridley being open in coverage. So Calvin Ridley will still get his, because it does every time, because I never play him when Julio's out, and he always gets this 5-yard down in the last 6 seconds of the game to hit like 10 DraftKings points. So like, that's fine, but I'm completely off. It's 7,500 for Calvin Ridley. No, thank you. That's a hard pass for me. I think this is a get right spot for me, for Herbert.
For you?
And for me, for Herbert. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, so get right spot, in my opinion, for Herbert, Keenan Allen, and Austin Eckler. All three of them. Atlanta defense is simply bad. I mean, they've looked a lot better since Dan Quinn got fired, but their defense is just atrocious. So
and everyone will
Herbert gets back on track.
They after getting embarrassed last week by the Patriots, I think it's a great bounce back spot for them. And it'll be low owned. Eckler seems like the only piece that's really drawing ownership on the. Yeah,
that's about it. Eckler's mega chalk because, again, even with his disappointments, he's still getting double-digit targets, if not near that. Last week he had 9 targets, right? So if the catches come, then the ceiling game could happen, right? So Herbert, Allen, and Eckler would be the only guys I have interest of in this game. Todd Gurley's knees are completely shot, so this is not a God Turley game, unfortunately, folks. And I'm completely off the Atlanta offense altogether. All right, let's get to some questions before we do our top plays at each position. MG3, CLX MG3, yes, he's been saying that since the show on Wednesday. Absolutely love it. Oh, this question for you, Tulak. How do you get your Green Bay exposure and your Philly Saints stacks with Jalen Hurts, Ward, and I think you had Rieger in there?
Yep. I think the way you do it is Aaron Jones, because I think if you're going that route, I don't want to play Miles Sanders on the Philly side. I have no idea how that's going to play out. And I don't really want to play Kamara right now with Taysom Hill. So I think you're going to go more passing Philly Saints wise, which means you're kind of pushed into the corner there with Aaron Jones.
Yeah, absolutely. So if it means you're jamming in Cook, Henry, and Jones, all of a sudden the Eagle stack where people are like, oh my God, I don't know if I could get down with playing Jalen Hurts. doesn't necessarily need to cover all that much when you end up playing Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, and Aaron Jones, or at least 2 out of the 3, right? So who's more chalk, Monty or Rojo? As of right now, it's still David Montgomery, despite Rojo going up a little bit. Hasn't increased as much as I thought it would. People seem to be locked in on David Montgomery. Tannehill, Cook, Bernard, Davis, Jefferson, Samuel, Thomas, Swift, Bengals for FanDuel cash. No Bernard and no Swift in cash. That's the one thing that I could recommend. You got to get David Montgomery in there for Swift. That's an easy pivot. David Montgomery is actually cheaper than Swift. And then move Montgomery up to running back for Gio Bernard, and then see what kind of flex you could get in there. 15-man FanDuel tournament. Watson, Henry, Aaron Jones, Allen Robinson, like the star power in this one. Chark, Kuti, Thomas, Montgomery, Panthers.
Yep.
You like this one?
Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, I like that one too. Gallman, Robbie Anderson, or Corey Davis. Pick one for flex.
Davis.
Yeah, for me, it's Corey Davis. I'm all in on Corey Davis.
I
May have missed it. Move Monty Chalk to Rojo.
They're both great plays. I think both are great plays, and I think that they make for a nice little balanced build if you wanted to go 1-2.
Yeah, like it especially with the ownership that Derrick Henry is pulling. I'm curious to see what his ownership will be in cash once 1 o'clock hits, but I really don't feel like it's something that it's an absolute necessity. It's a strong play, obviously, but saving $2,000 plus to be able to go to Monty or now Ronald Jones is the move for me.
Here goes. After you do this one, there's another question I want to go back to.
Yeah.
Want me to put it in?
Walker says, let's go. Absolutely. Yeah. Throw the question up.
I tried. Didn't work. Oh, wait. Hold on. There we go. You see it?
Kuti or Patrick?
Yep. I had to bring this up because this is my buddy who just asked me to be the godfather to his son, so I can't skip over this one.
Congratulations.
So yes, so I think it's got to be Kuti with what we're seeing now. The amount of targets he's going to get is just going to be through the roof.
Yeah, always scary when a guy like Kiki Kuti has number one corners on him and possibly being doubled. I mean, you wouldn't think a guy of his skill level is going to be double covered, but that's exactly the situation that he finds himself in today.
He's got such a talented quarterback.
Nuka straight away, Will pours out. That's it. Yeah. Exactly.
It's like, listen, if this was a like you could almost relate this to the Jets side, right? Like with Perriman, like at some point you have to look at the talent on the offense. Like the fact that Watson is going to be able to buy time, like I'm going to side with a guy, like even in this instance, would you rather a cheap wide receiver who has Deshaun Watson throwing to him or Drew Lock? It's like, I'll take the good quarterback.
That's a great way to look at it. Right. And at one point he's going to stretch the field. We saw last game, before he started gaining all those yards, it was one 75-yard catch that ended up doing it for him. So he just needs one play, and then he gets the respect that he deserves out there, and we're good. AJ Green, no, sorry, Pickett, I'm out. Not with Ryan Finley under center, and certainly not with him leaving in the offseason.
And I don't think Berrios is going to be as chalky now. You're seeing that ownership start to come down because, and here's the key, we don't know Jamison Crowder's news yet. I've been flipping through. I have not seen anything. There is a chance we don't get that. And I mean, that would be, for those of you who are in the boat with, Ghost and I, where we're just not going to chase Brashad Perriman garbage. I mean, that would be the ultimate tilt for everybody who locks him in and then has to panic later.
That's it. Thoughts on Chris Carson? I always have interest playing a running back who's a 14.5, 15-point favorite. That's for sure. Jets run D does demand some respect, though. Again, I feel like it's overrated compared to what people make it out to be, but it's still a very good unit.
Yeah,
so
it's solid. I don't think it's just.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good leverage.
It's interesting because exactly, it's a great leverage play off the people who are going to play the Seattle passing game.
Absolutely. Last question before we get to our top plays at each position. Need help, Millie Maker, Montgomery Adams, or Rojo Hopkins?
Montgomery Adams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because Adams is the star power there, and you need him.
Yeah, that's it. If you are going Montgomery Adams, then you need to get different in a ton of spots because they're going to combine for 40 to 45% ownership in Millie Maker. So make sure you're getting different there. All right, we are going to go with our top plays. Let's go 2 quarterbacks, just top quarterback overall. combining price and upside. So obviously we're not just going to say Mahomes, for example, unless Mahomes is the top quarterback. So we're going to go with top quarterback combining price and upside, and then your top value quarterback.
I think for me, it's the top quarterback is Aaron Rodgers, because I think Devontae Adams is the best wide receiver on the slate. And as we talked about before, if you're projecting those multiple touchdowns, it's Rodgers. And I think I would rather take the discount there. My top value quarterback, I think we all know at this point, it's my boy Jalen. And I will see you at around 7 p.m. Eastern tonight, and whether or not that works.
I love it. Top quarterback for me, I'm gonna stick to my guns here. Ryan Tannehill, and then top value quarterback, I'm actually gonna go Mitch Trubisky. He's really cheap on FanDuel.
Going back to the well.
Going back to the well. Running back, who you got?
See, this is tough, because I think here's how I'll answer the question. I'm going to say it's Dalvin Cook, because I'm a tournament-based player, and I think we've talked about. I love the spot for him, and I love the fact that he's somebody like Derrick Henry, who I think is the best play on the slate. But the fact that he's 5x ownership of Dalvin Cook makes Cook my favorite play on the board. And
top value running back, who you got?
I think it's Rojo now.
Yep, absolutely. Took my guys, took both of them. Damn. This
is what happens, man. We're in lockstep. Yeah, that's usually a good thing.
We're on the same page, right? So both guys were featured as top 4 running backs in my article. They were guys that I've stapled into every single lineup. Cook and Rojo have to be the 2 main guys for me now. Derrick Henry, Robinson, Swift, Monty, and I'll throw in McKissick on DK. It has to be a lock for cash too.
And DeAndre Washington too, right? If we're talking true value from Miami.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll get there. I don't love it. I think it's a big trap, but at 4,000 he can't hurt you.
Yep.
Wide receiver, who you got top overall and top value?
I mean, Adams has got to be our top overall. I don't think either of us are gonna disagree, but I think value is interesting, because value to me is where I think I am just, I'm not going to go the Jets route. I'm going to stick with Jalen Reagor, and I'm going to go in on this Eagles pass. And I think they're going to take shots deep, and I think they're going to try and do some things to save Doug Peterson's job. So that's where I'm going today.
Absolutely. I love it. My top wide receiver on the board. Oh, it's tough to narrow it just down to one. Give me Corey Davis. Top value, Allen Robinson's really cheap, still compared to his upside that's there. And for those, I think I saw somebody asking Rashard Higgins, Gabe Davis pick of the week. I think I saw that question pop up like 50 times in the last like 30 seconds.
See what happens when you're hot.
My punt wide receiver this week that I will be taking chances on is going to be Colin Johnson of Jacksonville. He is by no means a burner. So for those of you that didn't know why I picked Rashard Higgins last week, I always like to target speed wide receivers and sticks as well. Sorry, I don't know. Not just we both like to target speed wide receivers versus Tennessee, with Adoree Jackson constantly being rolled out and pretty much done for the season. Colin Johnson is by no means a burner, but this guy is an absolute monster. He's 6'6", 230 pounds. Picture Mike Evans as a 5th-round draft pick. Colin Johnson has the same physique, same game as Mike Evans. So it's dangerous with the amount of wide receivers that are out there in Jacksonville, but he's pulling absolutely no ownership. So when we're talking about Rashard Higgins last week at 0.5% owned, and we're talking Gabe Davis sub 3% the week before, Colin Johnson is my guy this week for my GPP punt, and it makes for a perfect piece in your Jacksonville stacks. So do I prefer DJ Chark? Yes, but backups, throw to backups. Mike Glennon's going to find Colin Johnson. So give me Colin Johnson all day. Overall top wide receiver, like you said, you can't go wrong with Devontae Adams. This guy's an absolute smash spot. And this mid-range, there's a lot of love there. So if you're not going Adams, don't feel like you can't win a tournament, because there is so many good plays in this mid-range. I'm looking just now. Jefferson, McLaurin, Mike Evans, A-Rob, Corey Davis. There's so many of these guys in this 5.5 to 7K range that you could just load up on there.
Yep, absolutely.
Tight end, who you got?
I mean, it's got to be Kelsey at the top, right? I mean, I just don't see how you get away from it. I think the punts are interesting this week because I think if you look at the ownership, it's like Logan Thomas is kind of like everyone's safe value. I'm going to throw one out there. I know you're going to hate it because you typically hate guys that are in shares, but I'm going to bring up Mo Alley Cox. And the only reason I'm doing that is because if you look at the last couple weeks with Indy, he's actually starting to see his target share and his snap count is going up while everybody else's is ticking down. And since Rivers can't throw the ball more than 8 yards, I think going with some of their cheap tight ends is interesting.
I'm laughing because I had mentioned it to Jay yesterday because I know like a couple of times we're on building lineups and he's like, oh, what do you think about Mo Alley Cox? I'm like, who? You're playing Mo Alley Cox, and then yesterday I'm like, man, I'm surprised you're not mentioning Mo Alley Cox.
I got it for him, and we didn't even prep that
for him. So that was funny. I like that. Kelsey, top tight end for me, far and away the best on the entire slate. Darren Waller's interesting because of the zero ownership that he's pulling, but that's a tough matchup against Indy. So
I agree.
If you want to get spicy, paying $6,800 for Waller, that's fine. But if you're doing it because you're chasing 200 yards and 2 touchdowns from last week, they're playing Indy, not the Jets this week. Make sure that you remember that. And then top value, I'm going with Hawkinson, Logan Thomas, Fant, and Big Bob Tonyan as well.
Love that.
Hate doing DST because it's like a car. Once you drive it off the lot, it's instantly
you nailed that. I love that.
It's instantly losing value. But hey, we'll give 2 to 3 options here. Who do you like when building DST?
I think the way you kind of outlined it actually in your article is exactly how I approach it. It's like I never change who I'm rostering to try to fit in a defense. I build the roster, and then I work my way backwards. I've been using the Jets defense probably. I think I've used them every week for like the last 3 weeks. And they just never move off of that 2 to 2.1K. And over the last 3 weeks, it's like they've gotten 8, 9, 5 DK points. Like they're not hurting you, even though they're giving up a ton of yards and a ton of passing yards. But they do get to the quarterback and they do cause turnovers. So I'm going back to the Jets defense. I don't pay up for defense. It's pointless.
Absolutely. When you're making decisions based on D, essentially what I had outlined for those of you that hadn't had a chance to read it, it's that, the moment you pick your defense and the first ball has been kicked off, they're instantly losing points. So you shouldn't be changing positional players based on a team defense or saying like, oh, hey, I absolutely need the defense that's playing the Jets this week. Okay, but if that defense is 3,000 and that's the difference between you getting, Mahomes versus Kirk Cousins, well, guess what? Like Mahomes and that punt defense that like the Jets, for example, might get you there over Cousins and paying up for defense. So
agreed.
Make sure that you're locking your positional players first. Just a couple of teams that I have my eyes on at the top end. It's got to be Chiefs, Packers, and Seahawks for me. All in great matchups, all can cause some turnovers. In the mid-range, one that could fly under the radar for me is the Panthers. I don't have too much confidence in this Denver offense, and even if they end up putting up points, I think they'll turn the ball over a couple times. Chargers, because Chargers defense is bad, but Atlanta's offense without Julio might be even worse. And then Cowboys versus Cincy is definitely the chalk play for cash. Honorable mention to your Jets. Let's go Jets.
Let's go Jets.
0-16. No. Let's go Jets.
Let's go.
All right, we'll get to the last couple of questions, then we'll get out of here. Cook and Rojo in every GPP lineup. No, I don't go 100% ever in any sport on anybody unless I'm absolutely like I have to be beyond locked in on somebody to go 100% exposure on somebody, which is what I did last week with James Robinson. But it takes a lot for me to go 100% on somebody. I have them in nearly every lineup, though, almost every lineup. Glennon Johnson. Yeah, let's go, Jerry. Let's go. I love it. Jonnu Smith with your tiny stack. For me, it's going to be a no. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
Fine. I mean, not anyone that I'm setting out to play. I think I'd much rather, find the way to get to Davis or Brown if I'm going to get exposure to that passing game.
Yeah, I will say this. If you're playing Jonnu Smith, you absolutely cannot play Derrick Henry. The script that you want there for playing Jonnu Smith is similar to what I had outlined for Kyle Rudolph the other week, where it's, if Derrick Henry's getting stuffed at the one, which, very rarely does that happen, but if he's getting stuffed at the one, then it's going to be a quick fade to Jonnu Smith, right? So don't be playing both together, but if you are fading Henry, go for it. Bengals DST. Yeah, it's fine. It's
that's an anti-revenge narrative. I like it.
It's like it's definitely plausible. They're only 2,300 on DraftKings, so and Andy Dalton is not exactly Dak Prescott, right? So could work. I like it. Dalton, Cook, Henry, Corey Davis, CD, MVS, Tanyan, Kuti, Cowboys. Only guy I'm not sure about in that lineup is MVS.
Yeah, Scantling scares me.
Yeah, especially
because you already have Tanyan. It's like you're probably not getting a touchdown from both of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. So I would find a way to swap out MVS out of there. Brian's making a lineup for you.
My man.
So we're good to go. Robbie or Rojo season long? Ooh, Robbie Anderson smash spot with DJ Moore out, or are you going Rojo?
I think Rojo. I'm on the Rojo train now.
Yes, sir. Let's go. Welcome aboard. Let's do it. Earlier question, last one. Montgomery. I meant Washington Adams or Rojo Hopkins for the Millie. This on DraftKings, Brian? I assume you always play DraftKings, right?
Yeah, looks like it.
Rojo Hopkins. Just go Rojo Jefferson. Get the stock in there.
Ooh, I like that.
Don't go Hopkins. Go Rojo Jefferson. That's what I would do. And then last one, Jones and Kuti or Adams and Hansen. Ooh. What do you think about this one?
I think it's got to be Adams Hansen, just because Adams is the better star.
Yeah, see, this one was tough for him because I could tell he was reading. He's like, man, I have Aaron Jones in my lineup. I like Aaron Jones, but Adams has.
But the
exact same thing. I'm thinking the exact same thing.
Kuti and Hansen are totally interchangeable. So
yeah. That's it. At that point, you're pretty much flipping Adams for Jones. And
agreed. And you have to take Adams there.
Yeah, you got to take Adams on there every time. People sleeping on Hopkins, Drake. Oh, come on, pick it. Don't do it. But
they are.
Don't do it. Don't do it. All right. You have any last thoughts? Anything at all?
No. So just listen. First and foremost, man, thank you for having me on, Sticks. I hope I did you proud, buddy. I hope you enjoyed your bachelor party. For those of you who've stuck it out, and we've had, a good crew on here this whole time, for the whole hour plus that we've been on, Ghost and I work really closely together on the NBA side. Ghost and Adam and myself are going to be our core guys here from the NBA season as we come up on Win Daily. And if you have not yet, please go check out the promo that we just put out for our NBA package. And I'm going to give a little plug here because I think it's worth your time to listen to it. Guys, it's $149. And you might listen to that and go, oh, wow, I'm going to pay $149 for one season. No, that's what every other site does. And they're going to charge you more. This $149 takes you through the NBA season, which is through the end of July. And, oh, by the way, you get every other sport. So you can roll with us for everything that we've got for the NFL. It basically boils down to about $20 a month, from here on out. And you're going to get every sport that we cover through that time frame. So go out, check out our site. If you guys have, come in and checked out the free trial, now's the time. This is the best deal you're going to get. Our NBA team was rocking and rolling in a bizarre world in that bubble. Excited to get back to kind of some reality of the NBA season. And I promise you, I will only talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. once an hour.
I love it. I absolutely love it. On the bottom of our screen, as well as the holidays are approaching, I hope everyone's doing well and staying safe. Support for Win Daily is brought to you by Manscaped. Best in men's below the waist grooming. For some gift ideas, whether it's a funny gift for your boys or whether it's an actual meaningful gift for anybody in your family, Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over technology developments to provide the best tools for grooming experience for all guys out there. Get 20% off now and free shipping with code WINDAILY at manscaped.com. 20% off free shipping, manscaped.com, and use code WINDAILY. For those of you that are in Canada, use the same link, manscaped.com. Just put CA dot at the beginning. So CA.manscaped.com in case you do not see your shipping location out there. Brian, thank you for joining me today, brother. I really appreciate it. Good luck, everybody.
See you guys.